Understanding leases, a comprehensive guide. A lease is a significant legal document that outlines the terms and conditions under which one party, the lessee or tenant, agrees to rent a property owned by another party, the lessor or landlord. This contractual agreement is foundational in real estate transactions and can vary widely based on the nature of the property, residential or commercial. Understanding the ins and outs of leasing is crucial for both landlords and tenants to protect their rights and responsibilities effectively. Key takeaways. Definition: a lease is a legally binding contract for renting property. Types: residential leases are generally standardized, while commercial leases can be quite varied. Consequences of breach: breaking a lease can lead to civil actions, credit report issues, or a negative rental history. Protected groups: certain groups can terminate leases without penalty under specific circumstances. Legal protections: leases must comply with federal and state laws. Understanding a lease. Leases serve as formal agreements that stipulate the responsibilities and obligations of both parties. Essential components of a residential lease include: property address, identifies the rental location. Parties involved, clearly defines the landlord and tenant. Rent amount, specifies the agreed rental amount. Security deposit, indicates the amount required to cover potential damages. Due date, outlines when rent is to be paid each month. Lease duration, details how long the agreement lasts. Pet policy, specifies rules regarding pets. Breach penalties, clarifies consequences of contract violations. Most residential leases are standardized to simplify transactions, while commercial lease agreements can be more nuanced and tailored based on specific business needs. Special considerations. If a tenant needs to break a lease, the consequences can vary significantly depending on the nature of the breach. Common repercussions might include eviction, lawsuits, or damage to the tenant's credit report. In serious cases, breaking a lease could complicate future rental applications. Students or tenants who find themselves unable to fulfill a lease agreement should consider negotiating with their landlords to mitigate any potential damage. Many leases include clauses that allow for early termination under specific conditions, such as job relocations or landlord neglect in maintaining the property. Legal protections and fair housing. Leases cannot contain provisions that violate state or federal laws. For example, a clause permitting a landlord to access a unit without notice or one that imposes excessive fees would not hold up in court. Moreover, fair housing laws protect tenants from discrimination based on various characteristics such as race, gender, or health status. If discrimination occurs, individuals have the right to file complaints with bodies like the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Protected groups. Certain demographics have additional rights when it comes to breaking leases. Military personnel, under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, active duty members can terminate their leases without penalty if they receive relocation orders. Domestic violence survivors. Many states allow victims of domestic violence to vacate their leases without negative consequences, requiring documentation such as police reports. Individuals with disabilities. Renters may terminate their leases if facing health challenges that make their current living situation untenable, often needing medical documentation. Regardless of their circumstances, tenants in these categories typically must provide written notice, usually at least 30 days, before leaving. Lease regulations during COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic introduced unique challenges in tenant-landlord relationships. Despite widespread financial hardships and temporary federal eviction moratoriums, breaking a lease early to escape financial difficulties did not relieve tenants from their contractual obligations unless specific conditions were met. For property owners with federally backed loans, relief measures may have imposed restrictions on evictions, prompting some landlords to show leniency toward tenants seeking to break leases due to loss of income. Different types of leases. Beyond residential properties, commercial lease agreements can take several forms. 1. Single net lease. the tenant pays for property taxes. 2. Double net lease, the tenant covers property taxes and insurance. 3. Triple net lease, the tenant is responsible for property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. 4. Gross lease, the landlord assumes responsibility for operating costs outside the rent. Each type of lease is designed to allocate specific costs and responsibilities between landlords and tenants, often benefiting landlords by securing upfront payments and operational efficiencies. Benefits of leases. Both landlords and tenants gain advantages from well-structured leases. Clarity, they clearly outline the obligations and rights of each party. Stability, leases provide assurance about rental costs and durations. Legal protection, they serve as an enforceable document that establishes the terms of the rental relationship. Conclusion. Understanding leases is vital for anyone engaged in rental transactions. By appreciating the nuances of lease agreements, whether for residential or commercial purposes, both landlords and tenants can safeguard their interests and foster a mutually beneficial rental relationship. Always consult legal professionals or real estate experts when navigating leases to ensure compliance with applicable laws and regulations.